Well, greetings, students. Good to be with you today. We're going to be continuing today on our drafting series. We covered drafting 1 last time, where I showed you how to do some circles and squares, rectangles and chamfers, radii and that kind of thing, and a little bit about dimensioning. So today we're going to begin our first drafting project. So with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead then and open up Esprit. You should open up yours. And this is basically a rendition of what we're going to be drawing. This is called the drill tap bore plate. And you will see as you use your hard copy, you'll be getting a hard copy from me at school. And you'll see that it has the name here, drill tap bore plate. And our material, cold rolled steels, the part number 46758. You'll have the tolerance area here where you have your decimal places and how much tolerance you have. Now this is only basic. This does not mean that this overrides anything in the drawing itself. You may have much closer tolerances to adhere to on the actual drawing itself. Then over here you have the revisions and the description. All revisions usually start with 0. And so our first revision here says change 3/4 inch thickness to 1 inch. And if I look up here, I can see that this was changed to 1 inch. And then the second change that was made, Rev 1, was change the 1 inch diameter hole to 0.9219 or rounded 922. So over here we see that the through hole here is 922. We see a dotted line here which represents our thread. If you look over here, it's 1 inch 12 times 3. So it's a 1 inch thread, and then the counter bore out here is 1.250. Then we have some tapped holes here. We have 12 of them, 5/16 18 by 1/2 inch deep. And you'll see that there's 2 diameters here. Your tap drill size is 257, and your tap itself, since it's 5/16 18, here it is, it rounds to 313. So we're going to go ahead and get started, but before we do, I wanted to make sure you saw the special notes down here. There are times when special notations are made at the lower left-hand side of the drawing. This is nickel plating is required here, ASTM B733, and this is basically a template here that we see that goes all the way around. So the first thing we're going to do is create, or import, I should say, a template and then begin our drawing. So I'm going to go ahead up here to the upper right hand corner and hit new and say no here, and I'm going to begin to do our drawing. All right, so the first thing we have to do is to import a template. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to import that template right now. I'm going to go into your files, CNC I 2025. CNC I 2025 students, and I'm going to go to the drawing templates, double click and pick up 11 by 17 template and open that up. So here you see the template then, and you'll see that there's areas here then you can fill in your cold roll steel here, the name, you have third angle projection, you have your rev areas here that you can fill that in later. This is 11 by 17, so it should be 17 inches from left to right. And we see that it is. And top to bottom will be 11. Okay? That's why we call it a 11 by 17 drawing. So I don't need those 2 dimensions there. I'm going to get rid of them, and then I'm going to go ahead and zoom in and begin making my part. So you have your hard copy in front of you, and what you can do now is to kind of follow me on how I do this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make an orthographic drawing. So I'm going to start with the top view, So I'll go down here to this toolbar, which is unbounded geometry, and I'm going to go to this toolbar, which is bounded geometry, and these will be the two that I'll be using mostly in this exercise. So let's look at, first of all, creating a line. If you go to unbounded geometry, it's going to create a line that is infinite. So I'm just going to grab this, and I'm going to pick a spot out here where I think it'll be best, and I'm going to click on that point. And there is no point there, but I created one when I left clicked on it. And I'm going to say 90 point so that it creates a vertical. And now I'm going to use point, and I'm going to use snap, and I'm going to pick a spot up here that I feel would be a good place to begin our lower left hand corner reference point. So I'm going to pick that. It's asking me, is that the segment? And I'm going to say left click, yes. And you notice that it puts a intersection right there for me. The next thing I want to do is create a horizontal. So I'll go back to line 1, and I will create a line saying 0 point, and that creates a horizontal line. And you may ask why. Well, remember, in a Cartesian coordinate system like this right here, anything to the right is x plus, anything to the left is x minus, anything from here up is y plus, and anything from here down is y minus. Remember, I mentioned to you that when you're starting out here, this happens to be 0, and then this is 90, 180, and 270, and then back to 0. So that's why I hit 0 there to create this horizontal line. All right, so the next thing I want to do is create a parallel line to this, and I want to move it up 2 inches because that's what our part drawing says. So I'll grab this and drag this up, and I'll put in 2.0, enter, and there is my height. Then we know that the part is 8 inches long, so I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to type in 8.0, enter, and then I have my rectangle started. What I need to do now is to trim off these things, like trim this, trim this, trim this, and that, or I can just use keep. If I go down here to the unbounded geometry and look for the icon called keep, I grab that, and I can left click twice on these, and then I have completed my rectangle. And I also have my lower left hand corner as my reference point. Now I'm going to undo a couple of these just to show you that there's another way of doing this. You can use trim down here, which is right next to keep, and you can trim this off, right, and trim that off, and so on. The only problem with trimming is that you have all this excess stuff now that you have to get rid of. So I would end up having to draw a box around it and hit delete and delete down here. So I'm better off actually using keep. That way I save myself the extra step. So I'm going to keep this now, and then we're back to my rectangle. So this is the top view of our orthographic drawing. The next thing I'm going to do is create the side view. So that's where the bounded geometry comes into play. Bounded geometry is a toolbar that allows you to extend, like for instance, if I want to use segment 1, I can grab this segment. Now you got to be careful you don't get the center of the segment. Make sure you're above it or below it. But grab the segment and drag it out here somewhere that looks good, and just left click. And then you can grab the same segment, and we know the piece is 1 inch thick, so type in 1.0 and hit enter, and then left click, and that creates another parallel line. The only thing left to do on this is to come up here to segment 2 and come down and hover over the edge of that line and the edge of this line and hit my left click button, and that will close this and create my right hand view. I can do the same thing now for my front view. I'll go back to segment. I will grab this and I'll drag it down here somewhere that looks good, and then I will left click on it and then go and grab it again and then type in 1.0, enter, and do my parallel line set at 1 inch apart. Then I can go back up here, segment 2, and then close this. Click it once to activate it, and then click on it again, and you will have it closed. Now, you may ask yourself, okay, well, what if I'm not right on this? Let me just check myself. So that's where this toolbar comes into play, dimensioning. And this icon right here, dimension, is used for just about everything as far as dimensioning. It'll pick up circles, radii, angles, the whole 9 yards. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to ask myself, okay, is this 8 inches long? And if I come up here, I see that it is 8. And this down here is 2, according to our drawing, and that's correct. And then this is 1 inch, and that is correct. So I've already got my basic rectangle with 3 views. So now I'm ready to begin to put the center points in this, and bores and tapped holes. So I don't really need these dimensions right now. If you want to keep them, you can, but right now I just want to get the drawing finished, and then we'll go back and do that later. All right, according to the drawing, our center point for our through hole of 922 is set at X 1.125 and Y 1 inch. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to use segment again, okay? And I'm going to come over here and grab it and then move over 1.125. Hit enter and then left click. Then I'm going to come down from the bottom, right? And I'm going to come up 1 inch according to the drawing. 1.0, enter, and then left click to close it. Now I can check my drawing out and see that I am ready now to put the bore in, the 922 bore, but I have to create an intersection first. So I'm going to click on point out here and click on intersect up here, and then create my intersection there and there. And that creates my intersection. So all I need to do now is begin to put my dimensions, or put my circle in there and my holes and so on. I'll do actually one of these sections first. So I'll do the through hole, the thread hole, which is 1 inch, 12, and I'll do the counter bore, which is 1.250, and then I will copy this and move it over 2 more times. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and grab circle 1, and I'm going to grab my intersection here, drag this out, and it's asking me at the bottom left-hand corner of my drawing down there, what is the radius? So we know that this is 921.9 or 922, so I'm going to type in 0.922, and then up here where number lock is on my keyboard, to the right of it there is front slash. That stands for divided by. So I click that, and then I click 2, so divide it by 2. And then I hit enter, and that will create my circle. If I want to check it to make sure that it's right, I'll go down to dimension again and make sure that it is 922, and it is. Go back and say undo, and at this point then I can put in my thread. If you'll notice that there's dotted lines on there, that dotted line is stands for the actual thread diameter of 1 inch, 12. The 922 is actually the tap bore size, or the minor diameter of that thread. So that's the reason why we have to do a through hole, because the thread goes all the way through the piece. All right, so let's do the 1 inch dotted line next. So I'll go down here and I will click on circle again. And I'm going to go over here though to the lower right hand corner, and I'm going to change it from a constant line or a continuous line to a checked line. And that way I can show that this thread is actually hidden, which it is if you're looking at the top view. So now that I've done that, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick my circle. And I'm going to grab this and I'm going to put 1.0 divided by 2. And you'll see now that I have the dotted lines of the thread that you cannot see. Of course, that dotted line stands for the major diameter of 1 inch, and the minor diameter is 9/22 of that 1 inch 12 thread. All right, now I can go ahead and begin putting in my taft holes, which are 5/16 18 by 0.500 deep. So I'm going to follow the drawing again. I'm going to use up here segment 1, and I'm going to grab this and move over here. The drawing says that from the left to right, it's 0.500. And I'll hit enter. And you'll notice that now that I have the dotted lines. And that's a good point, because right now we have to change this back to a solid line. So I'm going to say undo here, and I'm going to go up here to where it says create. And this is very important that you change this back. Once you change things down here at the lower right, like the color and the lines, it will stay that way for the rest of the drawing, for everything. So it'll all be black. In this case, I want to say default attributes. So now you'll see that there's a check mark by it. So now we're back to default. And now I can go ahead and hit segment again. And I can move over my 0.500. And now it's going to give me a solid continuous line. Then we also find here that from the bottom up, it is 375. So again, I'm in segment, grab here, come up 0.375, hit enter, and that takes care of my first hole's intersection. Then 1.625 is where the second set of holes are. So I'm going to grab this again, this segment, and come up 1.625 and hit enter. And then lastly, I'm going to go to the far hole here. It's at 1.750. So I'll grab this and I'll come over 1.750, hit enter, and now I should have everything I need for my holes. Let me just double check something here. I want to make sure that this is a 1/2 inch. It may not be. Yep, that is. And make sure this one's 1.750. Nope, and it's not. It's 1.850. So you have to check yourself. That's why I said about checking your dimensions. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to start again with my segment and come over here and make sure 1.750 is put in there. So there's 1.750, so I should be good now. I will double check it again just to make sure. And yes, it is 1.750. Okay, so I've got the 4 positions that I need for creating my intersections for my holes. So now I'm going to go to point again, and this time make sure I also select intersect, and I'll create an intersection between these lines. You have to hit it twice. First time is that it asks you, is this what you want? There's a little question mark there by the mouse, and you left click to say yes, and then click this one and say yes, and it creates the intersection. So you'll do that 4 times here and create 4 intersections, and now you're ready to put in your holes. So actually you don't really need all of these lines here, which, you know, after a while they'll get to be like spaghetti and be in the way. So I have my intersections there. All I need to do now is go down here and hit circle 1 and pick my first hole down here. And you'll notice on your drawing the tap drill hole is 257. So I'm going to put in 0.257, and I'm going to use the front slash or divided by 2, and that puts that one in there. Check it to make sure it's 257, so I'll come down here to my dimensioning, and yes, it is 257. Then I'll come back up here and do the next one. And if you look at the bottom, you may or may not see that the radius is remembered. This time it's not, so I'm going to say once again, it's 0.257 and divide that by 2, and that creates my next one. Then if I come over here to the third one, and I look down here at the lower left-hand corner, it says enter radius 0.257 divided by 2. So I don't need to type that in now because it remembers it. And we can do the same thing here, and it remembers that. And we're good to go. So now we have our tap drill hole size, and now we need to put the major diameter, which is 5/16 18 or 312. And again, you won't be able to see this from the top view, so we're going to have to use the dashed lines again. So what I'll do is come down here again to the lower left, or lower right, and pick the dashed lines again. And then I'm going to start doing these circles. So I'll start down here, click on that. And it remembers 250, I'm sorry, it should be 0.3125 divided by 2. And I click OK, and it takes care of that one. Then I come up here to the next one and see if I have 312 divided by 2 in the lower left, and I do. So I can go ahead and just hit enter there, and then enter again here, and enter again there. Okay, so that gives me the 4 tapped holes, the through hole, thread, and now the only thing that's left to do is the 1.250 counter bore. So I'll go down here to circle 1 again, and I'll grab a hold of the center of this, drag this out, and put 1.250 divided by 2, and you'll notice that the dashed lines come up. And you say, well, now what am I going to do? Well, just so you can know how to fix this, I don't have to delete it. What I can do now is I can grab that dotted line and left click on it, and now it has grouped it. So now it's waiting for me to give the next task. If I right click and say copy, and I go to attribute, I can change the line type by coming down here to where it says line type. Notice it says dashed, and all I have to do is put in here, click on solid, and say move, not copy, but move, and say OK, and then it puts the solid line back in. So that isn't, there is not 2 circles here, there's only 1, and you can check that out by just left clicking here and say no, and if nothing else comes up, then you know you don't have 2 circles overlapping each other. So okay, I'm in pretty good shape here. I have 1 pattern already done. Now, rather than going out there and doing each pattern separately, which you could do, it is better for us to grab this whole thing. So I'll start up here at the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to left click and hold it down, drag it out, create a box around this, and group all of it. Then I'm going to right click and say copy, and then this time I'm going to choose translate. And this time I want to copy it, I don't want to move it. And I want to make sure that I move this. The next hole pattern is 4 inches in X. If you look at your drawing, from the very lower left-hand corner over to the center of the second bolt pattern, it is 4 inches in X. So I need to put 4 inches in here, 4.0. And I'm saying copy, and I'm going to say OK. And you'll notice that it comes over 4 inches. But I don't want to go 4 inches from this one to this one. So I'm going to say undo here, and I'm going to take a look at the difference between the 3.375 and the 1.125. Once I figure the distance, so I'll get my calculator, you can get yours out, and if you take your 4.0 and you subtract off of that the 1.125, you will get 2.875. So that's how far it is to that one. So we're going to say right click, copy, translate. This time though we're going to go 2.875. And hit enter, and then it puts the second pattern in there. Now we also should check to see that our third pattern of holes, it comes off the edge at 6.250. So 6.25 minus the 4 inches 2.25. So now I can click off of this, and just to make sure that it is 2.25, this should be the same. So let's see. 2.875. So that's the first one. The second one should be the same. Let's double check. So let's go back to our drawing, and you take 4 inches, and so you take 6.875 and subtract 4 inches from it, and I get 2.875. So that pattern is still 2.875. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say create default values, and then I'm going to grab my pattern, right click on it, say copy, and move 2.875 and hit OK. So now I have my whole patterns all set at 2.875 from center to center. So that really gets me a lot further along because I simply copied and pasted them the distance that's required apart from each other. All right, so the next thing we want to do is look at the side view. The side view over here has some geometry put on here. Number one, you see that your counterbore is listed here. So if I want to find a counterbore, I can simply go up here to unbounded geometry now, and I can grab the top of this counterbore and I create a string. So I put 0 point in here, and then do the same thing at the bottom, and that will set me my distance of the counterbore being 1.250. So these two lines here should be at 2.250 apart. So let's see. And they are. So that is going to set that for me. So the next thing I want to do is I want to use segment, and I want to move it 1/4 of an inch. So I'll grab this segment and move this in 0.25 and hit enter, and then left click. So that puts my counterbore in here, at least the side view of it. So I'm going to trim this out. So I'll go to trim here, not trim, but keep. I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep this. And that shows the side view then of my counterbore. Now you'll notice that it's dotted because you can't see it from this view. So you could just left click over here after you get out of that. Left click and drag down here and pick up that geometry there. Right click and say copy. And you want to say attribute, where you can change it to a different color, or you can change the line style to dashed or hidden. Either one of those will work. I think I used dash before, so I'm going to say move and then hit OK. And now you see the dashed lines there will be the hidden pocket that you can't see from that vantage point. The next thing you want to put in here is this 922 hole. So I'll use line 1 again, and I'll grab the line here, make it 0 point, second line, 0 point, and create those two horizontal lines. So then these two lines here represent the through hole. So again, I'm going to use keep, and I'm going to choose this as keep and this as keep. And now you can see how this counterbore goes through here. Again, we have to change it to dotted lines. So we will grab these two, right click, copy, attribute, and change this to dashed. And make sure I say move here so I don't copy over it, and now I have my through hole. You can put the taft hole in there too if you wish. It might be a little bit mixed up in here because they're very close, so I'm just going to leave that go because the threads are going to be clearly shown on this view. So what I can do here now is show where these holes are. So the easiest way to do this is to get into the center of one of those holes, which are all in alignment with each other. Just grab an intersection here, say 0 point, and now you have it. You see that it's right over top of the counterbore. So it's going to be hard, to be able to visualize it with all the lines in the way. But what I can do is I can create one hole here showing the tapped hole and its depth. So what I'm going to do is, rather than showing the center point here, I'm going to delete this, say undo, and I'm going to grab each one of those top and bottom of these circles. So we'll start with that one, say 0 point, and this one here, 0 point, and then the 5/16 diameter here, 0 point, and this one here, 0 point. And now I can go over here and I can show how this will pan out. Now I know that my hole is supposed to be a 1/2 inch. According to the drawing, the tapped hole is supposed to be a 1/2 inch deep. So that means I have to drill my hole a little bit deeper in order to make that happen. So what I'll do here is I will grab this segment here and move this down, let's just say 625, so that it drills it just deep enough to be able to get our 1/2 inch deep of tapped full thread depth. So I'm going to type in here 0.625, hit enter, and left click, and that puts me right there where I need to be. So my distance now for this will be, from here to here, will be 625. So now I want to show the tap, or the end of the drill here. So what I can do here is I can create a point, and I'll intersect it right here and here and here and there. Now I'll go in here and I'll just put a point here. I'm going to say -30. And this one here, 30. That looks a little bit too steep, so I'm going to say undo and do. And I'm going to redo that a little differently. So I'm going to say -60. And then this one here at +60. And then I'm going to keep these two right here. So I'm going to say keep this and this. And now I have the showing of my drill. At this point we need to do some trimming. And I'm going to, actually we can use keep actually here too. So I'm going to keep this. This is the thread diameter right here. Be careful to grab the right one. I'm going to say undo there because it has to come all the way up here. So I'm going to have to use trim on this. So I'll use trim there and trim here. And now that's got it. So the only thing I have to do now is get rid of the excess lines. So if I grab that line and hit delete, grab that and hit delete, now I can see that my tapped hole goes down here 625, I'm sorry, my drilled hole goes down here 625, and then I can make another line in here that represents the actual thread. So the next thing I'm going to do is use segment again, and I'm going to grab it here, and I'm going to put 0.500 and hit enter. So from there to there then is 1/2 inch. From this point to this point is 1/2 inch, which represents my full depth of thread. Then I'm going to trim this off because the tapped hole should go deeper, as we said. So I will use trim here. I will trim this, and then I will trim this, And now we will have our 1/2 inch hole marked here of how deep it is, and of course our drilled hole, which comes down further. So with that being done, then I can get rid of these, and I just need to correct this to make sure that the lines are dotted, because all of this you can't see. So I'm going to collect these lines holding my control key down on my keyboard, and I'm going to I need to trim a little bit here first, though. I need to trim this at the end here first. So let's do that. Let's trim that off. Let's trim this off. Let's make sure you're out of it. And then go to trim and trim this and trim this. And you're going to want to trim this and trim this. All right. So that gets it where it needs to be. Now we can get rid of the excess lines and hit delete. And now this is starting to shape up. You need to put some dotted lines here because everything here is going to be dotted. It's going to be unseen. So I'm going to grab every one of these that are unchecked, and I'm going to right click and say copy attribute, and I'm going to go down here and hit dashed lines and say move, and that will give me my dashed lines for my tapped hole. Now there's one other thing we need to do here. We need to trim off this and this, so we can't keep it, we have to trim it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim this and this, and then get rid of the excess lines, and that takes care of that. And then I need to trim this off. Whoops, got to get out of it again. So hit trim, trim this off, and trim this off, and then get rid of the excess line here. And then I need to turn these also into dashed lines. And make sure it says move, and there we have it. At this point you can take away the intersections here, you really don't need them. And that shows the bolt pattern, this bolt pattern here. Now, you don't have to copy this and bring it down here, but you could. In other words, if I wanted to bring this whole area of dotted lines showing my threaded hole down here, I can do it. So I'll show you how to do that. First thing I have to do is check my distance from center to center. All right, my distance is 1.250. So I need to carefully collect all of this hidden area here of that bolt hole. Hold this, I'm going to hold my control key down so I can grab all of it. All right, so there is what I need to move. So if I right click and say copy, I can say translate, and then I'm going to say copy here, not move, but copy, because I want to move this or copy this and duplicate it down here. And then I have 2.875 that it remembers from the last time I used the X, so I'm going to put 0 point in here. Whoops, that's not right. I got to go back and do it again. Copy, translate, and I want to move this a minus 1.250. So there I am, a minus 1.250, and copy, and I'm going to say OK, and that duplicates this and moves it down the distance I need. Again, I should check to make sure that I've truly moved it that much. So I'm going to hover over here, the point of each one of these drill points, and there I have 1.250 just like over here, so I know I'm good there. All right, so we have basically then completed the right-hand view of this, And now we can go ahead and proceed with this. Now, it is not necessary for you to duplicate all of this down here for each one of these holes. You can simply draw some lines through, and I'm going to show you how to do that. That will be center lines through these holes and the center of these bores, rather than trying to duplicate everything that we did over here and showing the tapped holes down here. As long as you have it shown somewhere on the drawing in one of these views, it's good enough. So I'm going to use line 1. I'm going to grab the center of this set of holes here and type in 90. And what I can do here, I can say undo here, I can make this dashed right now. So I'll go down here and I'll hit dashed before I even do this. And then I'll click on line 1, pick the center of this hole, hit 90 and enter. It remembers 90. It remembers 90 there, and I'll just keep progressing from the left to the right until I get all of these lines drawn down there. Whoops. All right, so there they are. And you say, well, that doesn't look so good. We have to do some other things. So what we can do now is we can create some parallel lines. So I'll use segment 1 again. Come up here, let's say 1/4 inch, 0.25, hit enter. And then come down here below this and hit 0.250, divided by 2, and hit enter. And then I'm going to trim these off. So I'm going to trim off this, 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 and this, and do the same at the bottom. Remembering that I said that you can create center lines here if you wish. So now I have these short segments here representing center lines. So I'm going to go up here then and delete these all by drawing a box around it. I don't need this line anymore. I'll delete that and this one here. And now you see that I have these lines now showing that the representation of these center lines through the holes. So at this point, that's good enough because we've shown some things over here. You could add a center line through here as well. And we can do that just so it makes a little more sense. Click 0 here and 0. And then I can do the same thing using segment up here. I can come out here 1/4 inch, hit enter, hit enter. And then I can trim all this stuff off. So I'm going to trim off this, 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 and this, and then delete these lines here. And now you see that you have some center lines coming out here. You will need to get rid of the other stuff to clean up the drawing. But now you see how that we have our 3 views. So this is fine for this. The next thing we need to do is do some dimensioning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to dimension a couple of things here, and then I'm going to let you finish dimensioning the drawing and putting in the notations according to what the drawing that you have in front of you says. So just to show you some dimensioning here, I'm going to make sure that I'm in default attributes so that my color is green, and I'm going to use this dimension icon here. And I'm going to come over here to the left and I'm going to grab this and grab that, and I'm going to put in my first dimension over to there. This is progressive, so I'll go ahead and do this and go to the second one here and drag it down here and left click, place it there. Do the same thing for the next one over. And you see how I'm progressively doing this, all from our reference point. This one I can bring up here because I'm starting to get crowded down at the bottom, so I'll come up here and do this one here. And I'll also do this one over to here. And then I'll finish out doing my final whole pattern. All right. So you see how I've spaced these out and moved them out to the right a little bit. So I'm going to let you go ahead and do that. You can dimension this according to what you see in your drawing. So this is going to end this session. You will need to get rid of all this, so I'll get rid of this here, clean up my drawing, zoom in on it. This is a zoom here, zoom to fit. And you can see now that we've got things pretty well taken care of. The only other thing I want to show you is how to put in a name, okay, by going over here to dimensioning and click on text label. And then this window comes up and you can text in here drill, tap, bore, plate. So I'll do this, drill in capital letters, space, tap, space, bore, and then plate. So now all I have to do is say okay, and I got this now. So I'm going to drag this down here and place it somewhere in the middle of this box. So you can go ahead and do that. You can put your revs in here. All those things you can take care of on your own, see how you do. So we'll talk more about this in an additional session on this in the near future. Have a good day.